Hi everyone, number one Marmaduke fan here, and I've got a guest here today to help me review some of Konami Kanada's Kitten Tales. Now, the thing about a book like Kitten Tales is we could kind of sum this up down to a couple sentences, and that'd be the review. Do you like cat humor, and do you really like cats? Then you will probably really like FukuFuku Kitten Tales. If you are kind of tired of cat humor and you are not a big cat person, then you'll probably not like FukuFuku Kitten Tales. And that could be the review right there. See, okay, gang, let's wrap it up. Calling it a night. But maybe from an artistic and writing perspective, there are a few interesting things to talk about. Like, if you wanted to strip down what a comic book is to its most essential, bare bones elements, how much could you work in, or how many stories could you write that are very, very simple stories? How many stories could you tell about a cat that is a cat and isn't like a personified cat, like Snoopy's a personified dog? FukuFuku doesn't think thoughts. She mostly behaves just like a normal cat. Well, how many stories could you tell about something like that? You got anything to say? You're just relaxing. You're such a chill dude. All right. Well, that might be the interesting thing about this, is that so many of these stories follow a very simple, similar pattern. Like FukuFuku will discover something like snow, she'll interact with it, something comedic will happen, and it'll just sort of wrap up that she's discovered something, or something funny has happened to her, or something sweet has happened to her. Maybe like for little kids, this is completely G-rated, so I bet little kids who love cats would dig this. They might learn a few interesting things about Japan. But my interest in this is I kind of want to look at this as an example of telling a story with the most simple elements. So this one here is FukuFuku in Wonderland, because I don't know. This is the third manga in a row with like a strange Alice in Wonderland homage in it. Is it like, does every Japanese kid read Alice in Wonderland in primary school or something? So what's interesting about this is how different it is from the other stories, because most of the time, FukuFuku is just a completely normal cat, and it's things like, playing with little toys, and FukuFuku likes to play with, random pieces of string more than she likes to play with the expensive toys her owner buys. The drawing style is almost always this very straight on, very simple format. Like whenever FukuFuku scampers, it's that same little kind of like cartoony run. And in this one was a surprise compared to the other because it changed the format a little bit. So in this one, FukuFuku ends up as Arisu in Wonderlando and goes through, the basics of the story, eats the fish, shrinks down to tiny size, finds the white rabbit, finds the little old lady, drinks some milk, turns giant, and it was all just a dream. Did you see that? Mr. Miracle could have wrapped it up in just like 4 pages and just have everything be a dream. Now, it's all just a dream stories are kind of annoying in the context of a serious story, but here it just kind of works as a simple little gag at the end, which preserves the realism of FukuFuku being a cat and not being like a fantastical character, because then the granny wakes up and she realizes she just had a dream about FukuFuku being Alice. See, so even there, the realism is preserved. It's not FukuFuku dreaming about being Alice in Wonderland. It's the old lady. What I liked about this was it played with the format a bit, where most of these are just, FukuFuku being a cat, completely normal cat, and this one introduced a fantasy element, but then remembered to kind of keep the core identity of what the character is, a normal, curious cat at the end. And I also really appreciate how each one of these stories has its own charm, or works in its own right. So the similar vibe of all of them is FukuFuku is discovering things in the world from the perspective of an infant cat. And in that way, you could say that FukuFuku has a similarity with a human child. Human children discover things in the world for the first time. They find them wondrous and strange, and they're really excited by them. FukuFuku's a cat, so she has a similar experience in life. I don't think this boy's that interested in FukuFuku. He's thinking like, be gone! I don't want that. You are not a tomcat, are you, pal? You're just like, you just want to chill. You don't need any romance. All right, so book 2 is very much like book 1, but I wanted to maybe touch on a couple interesting things in... Oh, is this the right one? which one did I want to talk about? Yeah, okay. This one was kind of interesting because it just sort of shows like a generic FukuFuku story, and shows how it's all very straight on, it's all very simple. But FukuFuku, I think some of the humor of the character comes from the fact that even though throughout the series this kitten is completely a cat, behaves like a cat throughout the series, sometimes she'll be given like human expressions which add to the comedy or maybe indicate that she has a little personality there beyond just being a dumb cat, right? And so that, I think that's what makes her identifiable as a character, especially for young readers. Now, this little one is a short story, and I think it's another good illustration of playing with the format. So it's one of these pages where you could photocopy it and then like cut out the pieces and make a face. But then it's not just, hey kids, it's an activity page. It's explained within the context of the world because the granny is playing that game on her own, and FukuFuku's just giving her like the cat stare. And then the granny makes a face, and then she looks at the cat, and then the cat's making a similar wonky face because it's sleeping that way. Now I like this because this is a gag where expression has to sell the gag. So even though it's a very simple format for comics, and there's lots of reused straight-on angles, the artist remembers to like change things up as needed to deliver a gag that works here, partially because you've never seen FukuFuku have this expression before. It's usually like a very limited stock of expressions, but then when you need to make a gag based on what FukuFuku looks like, then you change it up a little bit. So elegantly simple, really down to earth, really straightforward, but that's the point. It's surprisingly strong, and there's surprisingly still a lot to dig into if you think about the art of making a comic like this. So I'd say I didn't like laugh out loud uproariously, but I think I chuckled probably about once a story. And there's not that much content to dig into. Like it's not like it's a higher point about the meaning of life or anything, but as a kind of like study of a cat's behaviors, you were just like not interested in doing anything cool for the camera today, huh? You don't want to go viral. You just had it with lolcats. All that stuff is just so 2012. Icon has cheeseburger. You just want your blanket, dude, and I get it. Well, oh great. I was being the smart aleck and I lost my train of thought. Okay, the point is that the sweetness of this is in a cat discovering things in life for the first time and in building a story based on really simple little things in life. And I think to write something like that, you'd have to be kind of observant of cat behavior, and you'd have to be observant of little things in life, you'd have to put yourself in the perspective of a child experiencing the world for a first time in order to write stories like this. And I really appreciate Konami Kanata. I think for what it is, at a really simple series of stories about cats, this is really sweet, really simple, really straightforward. Cat lovers will love it. I think children would love it. It'd be an almost perfect first manga for little kids where you'd learn a little bit about Japanese culture, but no kid would have trouble understanding it. And also a good example of writing a variety of stories based on a single simple concept. So even if you're not the biggest cat person, I think the ability to observe things in life like cat behavior and little beautiful details of life that can add a lot of sparkle and a lot of real life vividness to your work. If you're writing like a sci-fi opera with lots of really deep themes on human nature, then having a little bit of slice of life in that more serious kind of story would liven up your story and help people connect with your story a bit. So even if this is you look at this and think, wow, this is just so simple, I don't know if I'm interested. I think the habit of looking at the world that way is really good for any artist and any writer to pick up, and Konami Kanata has that. So I give it a recommend, even if you're not a cat person, like this guy. He just does not care about cat manga. What's your problem, dude? Anyway, a number one Marmaduke fan. I love you guys. I love this boy Cuddles. You're a good guy. Catch you later.